Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Games from Scratch with some Godot news. And I gotta admit, this isn't the most exciting news. It's probably amongst the least exciting news out there, but it is definitely important to how Godot works and develops because it is all about the funding. And they're going to be making some changes to the way that Godot is funded, both from various different sources, the accountability behind it, and on Patron. And we're going to start straight off with Patron because it is the easiest to show, and it is one thing that will probably affect the majority of people that might be affected, and even then, it's probably like 1% of people. And basically what has happened is they changed out their goals here. There is one right around here and one right around here, I think, in terms of dollar value, maybe $32 or something. It is now gone. And they also added a bronze sponsored level here, and we'll get into some of the details there. Now, the catch is, if you are one of the two tiers that was removed, you are going to become in a weird sort of case of limbo if you're on Patron, in which case you're either going to have to just pledge at a different dollar amount or wait till it can manually be fixed. So that is one of the changes here. Not really a huge deal on any level. Another big thing that's going on here is they're changing the way that funding is reported. They're going to be going to more basically $5,000 increments, and they're going to be a little bit less forthcoming about who they are going to be hiring for, privacy reasons and other ones that make sense. Now, one of the reasons why they were doing all of this, and this is coming from a blog post called Donation Changes over on the Godot website. I will link that in the linked article down below. But the Epic Mega Grant program kind of changes things quite a bit. Now, the Epic Mega Grants program, I reported on that back in February of 2020. If you don't know, Epic made a whole lot of money. Basically, Fortnite is a license to print money, and they took $100 million of that money, put it in a giant bucket, and they kind of labeled game dev on the side of that bucket, and they've been slowly handing it out. If you work using Unreal, open source, or in the graphics industry, you can qualify for an Epic Mega Grant. Now, Blender got one. They kind of started this all off the beginning of the year, or maybe even a little bit further back than that. They got $1 million or more. And then in February, the Godot engine got $250,000 USD funding. And when you're getting a $25,000 cash influx, that can definitely be useful and kind of change the way that you fundraise in a way. And now fundraising is more about trying to broaden the Godot engine and the support behind it, as opposed to before it was trying to secure Juan and other people's full-time use. So the tiers had to change, the structure had to change, and that's what they've done. And I can also speak from a Patreon person. A lot of the perks you kind of do or you set up, it's mostly people are there to support you or to support the project, not because they want to get something in return. God knows it's not that way for me because my returns suck. The things you get from being a patron, the biggest thing you get is my appreciation. And I think in a lot of ways, the Godot project is the same way. So we're going to look here at some of the changes that have made. The big thing here, again, is Patron is now paying 2 salaries full-time. Juan and George's work for the next 2 years are covering. So that's not going to come out of the donation pool anymore. So what we're looking at is changing the way goals are working. So similar to how Blender is doing now, we will change goals to increments of $5,000 for every contributor that we plan to hire. So basically, you can think of it as every time that number gets up to something divisible by 5,000, someone new gets hired. But the kicker is, doesn't necessarily mean that person is going to make that amount of money a month. They're not going to say, okay, well, we're hiring you, here's $5,000 a month. It's going to depend on what you do. So some contributors may be paid more or less depending on their experience, responsibility, contract length, amount of work hours, etc. Only reflects an average of what each person to be hired would be. At the same time, the Conservancy as a charity keeps 10% of all donations for operating costs, ensure transparency usage of funds, providing accounting, legal, and fiscal services to the project, etc. And those don't show as part of contributions as well. The other thing that they're doing out of the previous meeting is, before they used to basically say, if you can get us to this amount of money, we will hire this person. And they're kind of moving away from that for reasons I obviously think make sense. What if that person is no longer available? What if that person is currently in a job? And it kind of makes it a little weird because, they haven't quite given notice yet, and you're putting that person in an awkward situation, or various other reasons. People may just not want it publicly known, so they're going to move to a more generic model. And the nice thing here is we get a bit of insight looking towards the kind of people that Godot want to hire. Not necessarily the person, although maybe you can guess who the person behind it is, but the profiles they are looking to hire at $5,000 increments for working on the project are general usability 2D editor or website developer, contributor for networking, HTML5, Mono, C#, and GD native contributions, junior rendering contributor, VR, AR, mobile rendering contributor, and more generically, more contributors. So again, you're not going to see a specific person listed here. You're instead going to see, when we hit the next milestone, we are going to hire someone to do this job role. makes 100% of sense to me at this point in time. Obviously, they can also change those things too. Hopefully, they will be hiring someone soon. At the same time, there might be some small exceptions. So this is basically what I call the specialist category. Sometimes you just got to hire a troubled gun, a hired gun there. Someone that may come in on a particular contract to fix a specific problem. A couple of examples I gave here is improving documentation, adding RTL or right-to-left support, doing fixes to X11, the windowing system from Unix. So something kind of thing that you'd be really hard to find somebody to contribute towards. So sometimes you may just have to break out the wallet a bit. And that could be another way that hires happen on occasion. They also, as I mentioned earlier on, the tiers changed on Patron, so there were some rearrangements and rejigging of how those things work. What they've done now is to help prepare live QAs to be packed with interesting content. We'll propose the higher patrons to pre-submit questions or topics that will be discussed by core developers in the Q&A. So their new list of tiers are: at $5, you get a Discord role. At $10, your name is in the credits. At $14, name is further up in the credits. $26, you get the ability to submit questions or topics to discuss at the live Q&A monthly. $48 is a mini sponsor name on the Godot engine donate page and in Godot's about dialog. And the $99, the new bronze sponsor tier, name and URL on your site, Godot engine donate page and in the Godot's about dialog. We removed the $18 and $32 tier. So those were the two missing tiers I was talking about. If you look on here, so here is missing and here is missing. If you're currently in one of those tiers, you're going to have to jump towards another one of the tiers, one of the ones nearby it. Not a huge deal by any means, but those two tiers are gone. So since they've erased them, your status will go to no reward by patron. And to encourage patron all those tiers to upgrade the pledge whenever they see fit, to ensure that select one of the other pledge levels, $14, $26, blah blah blah. See how to update your patron membership. Yeah. I believe there is going to be a process after the fact that hopefully can get you put into an actual category. So if you're currently, one takeaway from this video is if you are currently supporting Godot Engine at $18 or $32 tiers, you're going to want to just edit your pledge to whatever makes the most sense for you, or you're going to be in limbo for a while. And that, again, is a shortcoming of Patron more than anything else. And they've moved and changed a little bit on how sponsorship works. This is something that happens outside of Patron, or is happening outside of Patron. Corporate sponsoring will change as the following. $500 is a silver sponsor, small logo on the homepage, plus name URL in the Godot about dialog. $1,500 is a gold sponsor outside of Patron, minimum 6 months commitment. Small logo, icon size on the splash screen, medium logo on the homepage, and a $3,000 platinum sponsor outside of Patreon, minimum 6-month invoiced, is a logo plus name on splash screen like now, and a big logo on the homepage. And they're going to try and get all of this stuff kind of reported in one page so you can see as transparently as possible. So right now you've got some funding coming in from Patreon, you got some coming in from Mega Grants, you got some coming in from sponsors and so on. They're going to try and get it so that, you know, if you look at the current system right now, and let's do that. So we're really zoomed in so you can't see, but you see right here, it's just showing we're 77% towards the goal of $15,000. By the way, if you head on over to the Patreon page, you can see a summary of where they are at now. So the big change here, the two tiers are gone, the one right here and the one right here. If you're in either one of those, you're going to want to edit it to be in a different tier. Otherwise, you're going to show as no status. They're going to try and consolidate all the things together. They're going to move towards generic roles as opposed to specific hiring people. And yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah. So that's a little bit more transparency into how Godot is funded. You can also see a little bit more because of the announcement of those roles that are available, of how they tend to spend the money if you are going to support them. Generally, all around, pretty much just good changes. And yeah, that's it. I'll talk to you all later. Thank you very much. Goodbye.